Hey guys, welcome back to What the Fat. This is episode 85, right? Episode 85. Wow, it's been a long time and we're almost at 100. We'll have to do something really special for 100. But I'm super excited to jump back on this new year with a brand new style. So last week you heard from a very good friend of mine, Dr. James, and that was an amazing interview, amazing podcast. I think there's a lot of tidbits to be learned from that. If you haven't yet, go check that out. It's got a ton of high quality information inside of that. But a lot of times, I told you guys one of my favorite styles of podcasting is like micro podcast. So what we're going to do is we're going to have special guests on every other week. And then in between, we'll have these little micro podcasts, which is what we're going to have here today to talk about a certain topic or something, just something random that I just want to jump on and think that you guys could get some value out of, because I just think it's an important piece to this overall conversation for What the Fat. So one of the biggest topics, and I just posted something on Instagram. So if you guys haven't checked it out, go check out Instagram. I posted something, a graphic talking about I don't have time and how I hate that phrase, literally hate it, and have kind of rid it out of my vocabulary because I don't think it's an accurate judgment of what people actually think it means. So I posted this graphic, and there was a lot of mixed feelings. Some people were like, oh yeah, I 100% agree. Some people were like super against it and were like, you don't know what it's like to have kids, or you don't know what it's like to go to school and handle this and handle that. And so I wanted to jump on and provide more clarity because it's difficult to provide it just in an infographic, but I think this podcast allows for an opportunity to expand on it. And I think it's a very, very important message that literally anyone can relate to. And so the graphic literally stated why you need to eliminate the phrase, I don't have time. And if you look at the hours in a week, right, there's 168 hours in a week. If you spend 8 hours a night sleeping, you work a typical 9 to 5, you spend 4 hours a day between eating, showering, and driving, you exercise an hour a day, and you completely take Sunday off, meaning that like you're spending it with family, you're recovering, you're doing everything possible to recharge that battery, you still have 22 hours in a week beyond all of that, right? And if you want to dive into the details, go check out that graphic because I think it breaks it down very, very clearly. But it's a general principle. And I think a lot of times people get caught up on the details. Well, no, I spend 3 hours commuting each way. You're losing the point. The point of the matter is like you say, oh, I don't have time for learning, or I don't have time for improving my knowledge base. Yes, yet you spend 2 hours in a car and you're listening to your favorite music versus listening to a podcast, right? Where you could be learning, or instead of listening to a course or an Audible book where you could be learning. It's just a lot of times people make excuses, and I really wanted to hammer home this point and talk about it because it's something that every single person, it doesn't matter what situation you're in, can relate to. And it kind of brought me back when I think it was 2005. I was at an event. My brother had just gotten an award for track. And Greg Schiano, at the time, he was the head coach for Rutgers football. He since has gone on and was the head coach for a lot of different teams, but he was giving a speech, and I was in middle school at the time, but it stuck with me at that time. He goes, listen, it doesn't matter if you're rich, poor, black, white, green, straight, gay, it doesn't matter. Everyone has 24 hours in a day. And I think that, like, to me, I was like, dang, like, besides every other thing that people talk about, at the end of the day, the one thing that we all have that's the absolute same is 24 hours in a day. And I think some people lose sight of that and lose sight of what's a priority versus I don't have time to do certain things. And that's kind of what the gist of this conversation is going to be about, of is it really that you don't have time, or is it that it's just not a priority right now? And that's one of the biggest differentiators I really want to talk about, of is it something that's just not a priority at this very moment versus I don't have time for it? Because I can promise you there are things that you're doing probably in your day-to-day life that can provide time to do certain things, but they're just not priorities. So it's just whatever you prioritize. A great mentor of mine and a really good friend and partner told me, he said this: priorities are never in conflict. So when people are like, oh, I don't have time to do that, or, oh, I can't do this with my kids, like it ultimately comes down to what is your priority? If your priority is spending time with your kids, being fully engaged with them, that becomes the number one priority and something else slips. But don't say you don't have time for it. It's just that your priorities have shifted. Or if your priority is shifting to, oh, you want to become an entrepreneur and you're working on your business and you're doing this, but you're like, hey, I don't have any time to do it, yet you're watching 2 hours of Netflix each and every day to catch up on your last rerun or your last episode of whatever show that you're watching, don't tell me you don't have time. It's just that Netflix is a higher priority for you than building your business. And so those are things that you just need to keep in context when you're thinking about, what do I need to accomplish? What does a day-to-day look like? What are things that I need to get done? It ultimately comes down to what is your priority. And so I posted this to try and get a point across, and I think there were some people that commented, and they're like, well, you don't know what it's like. You don't have kids, blah, 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 blah. And I empathize with them. I'm like, you're absolutely right. I don't have kids, even though I feel like I do, because in some regards, Scoot is like my little man, my little boy. But I get, like, having kids is completely different. But the thing to keep in mind is that's your priority, right? Like, spending time with your kids becomes the priority. And I love that. I think that's amazing. I do think, and if you look even deeper at some of the comments, like there are people that are like, I'm a single mom, I have 4 kids, and I'm attending night school to try and go back and get another degree. That's what I'm talking about. That's someone who literally took this message and is optimizing their time. They're not making excuses. They're saying, you know what? Even though I have kids, even though I'm a single mom and I'm working, I still found time to go back, and even if it's part-time, go back to school. And I freaking love that. I'm so proud of people like that, because a lot of times we make excuses like, oh, I can't do that, or oh, I can't make time to go to the gym, or oh, I can never go back and get another degree. It's like, well, you could. It's just not your priority right now. And so you need to readjust your priorities and say, what is my number one goal? What's my priority? And how do I put myself in a position in my day-to-day activity to make sure I'm achieving or taking steps towards achieving whatever that goal may be. And so I think that I have so many friends, business partners, colleagues. I see people all the time on social media that have kids, and they actually integrate, whether they're entrepreneurs or whether they're just working a typical 9 to 5 at a job. They figure out ways to balance having their kids, spending quality time with their kids, and enjoying the process, right? There's 2 friends of mine, Steve and Stephanie Milkey. I watch them all the time. She's Keto Mom on Facebook, and she always talks about how she brings her kids like into it. Another good example is my good friend Suzanne Ryan, Keto Karma. Like, she's always cooking with her daughter. Stephanie and Steve are always incorporating their daughters into like them making dinner. So it's something that they're doing, but like they're taking the time spent with their kids and making it as productive as humanly possible, and literally being with them fully engaged, versus what I think most parents do is they're half engaged, half not, and then they feel like they don't have a great relationship with their kids because they're not fully engaged in the situation. And I'm not going on this rant or talking about it to beat anyone down or say, hey, you're being a terrible parent. I think, first off, if you're a parent, huge kudos to you, because that's a huge, huge accomplishment. And the fact that you want to prioritize your kids is an even better accomplishment. I'm super fortunate that I had parents that made that same decision, and they were always putting my practices, my games, everything above what they're doing. And now I feel a huge responsibility to try and pay back or give more back to them, because they sacrificed a lot for me to be where I am now. And I see that now, and I see how they made me a priority over anything else. So that concept is one of the most important pieces that I hope that everyone can take away going into 2019. Like I said, I think a lot of times people are disengaged and aren't truly present, and you can maximize time and opportunity and completely shift your perspective when you're fully present versus when you're half engaged. And I'll give you an example. If you haven't yet, everyone that's listening to this, please do me a favor, and at some point over the next month, prioritize watching the documentary Be Here Now, I promise you it will completely shift your perspective of a lot of different things. And so it's an amazing documentary, and it talks, I don't want to spoil it, but it's a guy who is an actor, and he got diagnosed with cancer, and he talks about how his mind shift went from traveling all over the world, doing all these things, being this big actor, to like him cherishing every single moment with his family and with his kids and with his wife and being fully present. And that's the concept of like Be Here Now. I literally wear a wristband on my wrist that says Be Here Now because I love that concept so much. It's actually probably going to be a tattoo that I get here in 2019 because I'm so ingrained with that mentality that it literally becomes a part of my being, like every single day. In fact, if anyone knows me, like every day when I leave the office, I usually call my mom, or I call a friend, or I call someone to like catch up with, and it's just, I use driving time to like try and hammer out phone calls, just because it's just a better time for me to do it. It's what I prioritize when I'm driving. But anyone that knows me knows that the minute I pull into my driveway, the minute I get inside of my garage, I will not get out of the car until the conversation's over, because the minute I walk into that door, as crazy as it sounds, and y'all could be like, this guy's ridiculous, but as crazy as it sounds, the minute I walk in that door, I know Scoot is waiting for me, and he's going to be happy as hell to see me. He's going to be super excited, and I want to be fully engaged with him at that moment. I spend at minimum 10 minutes. As soon as I walk in, I drop my bags and immediately go over and like play with him on the couch, and we'll play around or play with the ball. I don't take any phone calls. I'm not distracted. I will not answer a text message during that 10 minutes. But for me, that's a priority, because I'd rather I know that my time with him is limited with how much I work and how much I'm doing different things or I'm traveling. So I try and maximize the quality of the time that I'm with him. And I think a lot of times people become disengaged, and they're like worrying about being on social media, and their kids are like, hey, mom and dad, play with me, or they don't feel like they're getting enough time with their pets, because when they're spending time with their pets, they're on YouTube or they're watching something, and they're not fully present or engaged in that moment. And that's something I really hope to challenge everyone that's listening to this podcast right now, is be fully present. Be here now. Think of that phrase every single time you're getting worked up or overwhelmed or frustrated that you don't have enough time spent with someone or something. Think about the quality of the time, being fully present, fully engaged in the moment, versus being half engaged and spending 3 or 4 times the amount of time that you could be spending somewhere else, and then not feeling the same quality of result because there was this gap that you weren't spending full quality engaged time with whomever that may be. And so I think it's very, very important to understand that priorities are never in conflict. I think, like, I'll give you guys one last example. When we wrote the Ketogenic Bible, and I'm going to be very open and transparent with you guys. When we wrote the Ketogenic Bible, I made it very clear to myself that sleep was not going to become a priority. And it was the way I had to structure my day in order to make everything that I want to accomplish that I felt were priorities at the time occur. And so I'm not recommending this. I think sleep is one of the most important pieces, or most important physical things that anyone can do. And I think it's extremely, extremely important to get quality sleep. But I knew that for a month to 3 months, while I was writing the Ketogenic Bible, I needed to sacrifice sleep. So what did I do? I would literally go to work, I'd come home, and the minute I got home, I'd start working. I'd eat dinner, and I'd start working on researching, getting everything ready for the next morning. My alarm would go off at 4 o'clock the next morning. I'd probably get about 3 to sometimes 4 or 5 hours of sleep every single night. And I got up and I started writing, because my best quality work time is literally from 4 in the morning till like 9 or 9:30 when I go into the office. That's quality time where I'm in the zone. I'm in what most people call like the flow state of like, I'm just cranking. And in order for us to get that book out with so many resources, so many references in the time that we got it out, like, I knew that was the priority. I needed to get up. I took whatever I needed to make sure I was fully in, fully optimized, whether it be caffeine. I even dabbled around with modafinil and try that out. And I was like, I need to be as laser focused as possible. And again, I'm not recommending anyone do this, but that was a priority to me. I knew there were going to be some things that were going to be temporarily put on hold for this book to be a priority. And I felt it was a priority because I wanted to get it out as a reference to truly help so many people. So yeah, I put sleep on the back burner. I put relationships on the back burner. I didn't go out for 6 months. Like I didn't go out. I was like in this cocoon. And I'm not recommending this, but for me, writing that book was such a priority in the time that we needed to accomplish it. I saw the end goal and I said, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get there. So it meant sacrificing sleep. It meant turning friends down occasionally and be like, hey, I can't go out on a Friday night. I'm actually sitting here writing a book. And it took a lot of time because, again, priorities are never in conflict. For me, the priority at that very moment, in that moment in time, was writing a book. And I think people get lost and confused and wrapped up in this word balance, and you literally, when you're talking about like work-life balance, ultimately it's what are your priorities? Like if your family and your kids are a priority, that doesn't mean that you can't have a good quote-unquote work-life balance. It just means you need to prioritize and figure out a way to incorporate them in and make whatever you want to accomplish a priority. If you want to go to the gym, and it's still early enough in 2019 that they're still hung up and excited about their New Year's resolutions, and I love that because it's a time to inspire people to take action. If you're one of those people that hasn't gotten in the gym, but like you feel that it's a priority, then really take a deep dive. And I promise you guys, I'm challenging you guys, look at your day and look at different time slots and say, where can I maybe cut 15 minutes here, cut 30 minutes here, cut another 15 minutes here. Now that's an hour gap that you can easily get a 30 to 45-minute workout in at a gym or even at home and feel completely different prioritizing what you want to prioritize and cutting away at maybe watching Netflix for 2 hours or maybe watching a TV show for an hour and a half, or maybe instead of eating dinner or for an hour and a half, you cut it down to an hour. Things like that. It's just, I challenge you to look at your day and see where you can cut, see what is priority, and figure out a way to incorporate that in and stop using the nonsense BS excuse, I don't have time. Because you do have time. Everyone has 24 hours in a day. It is what you allocate those hours to that become a priority. And so that is what I challenge you guys with. Get rid of the distractions. You can use apps. You can use these different things that literally tell you how much time you're spending on your phone versus being fully present with your dog, your cat, your fish, your kids, whatever it may be. Stop spending time scrolling through Instagram and looking at people and admiring them, and spend more time executing on things that you're trying to accomplish if that is your priority. And so I want to wrap up this episode and appreciate you guys listening to this and really hope to inspire you to take some action. Dive deep into what your day-to-day looks like and dive deep into what your priorities are. List them out. List out your priorities. List out your day and say, does what I do on a day-to-day basis match up with my priorities? At the end of the day, when I go home, wash my face and look myself in the mirror and go, did I accomplish or did I get 1% better today, closer to what I'm trying to prioritize or achieve in my life? Did I accomplish that today? If not, you really need to reverse engineer it and go back and go, what do I need to do? What do I need to do every single day, every waking moment or hour of the day to make sure that those priorities become the thing I focus on? So I challenge you guys to do that. And of course, things will come up, things that are unexpected. Don't let that hamper you or take you away, but always keep those priorities as a number one focus, and stop yourself and letting others use the excuse of I don't have time. Instead, just understand that it's not a priority, and that's completely fine, but it's just a different mindset. And so I challenge you to take that mindset shift and change it from I don't have time to right now it's not a priority. And if someone asks you, like I tell my team, I tell my friends, like I'm going to be honest with you, that's not a priority for me right now. That's a type C or D priority. There's a ton of other type A priorities, and that's how I'm able to balance out having multiple businesses, spending time with Scoot, spending time with family and friends, because currently in my very moment, that is my priority, is working on those things. And so priorities are never in conflict. Focus on what those priorities are and stop using the excuse, I don't have time. So I appreciate you guys tuning in for this week's micro podcast. I would love to hear more from you guys of what you want to hear about. What are some other topics that you guys want me to jump on and talk about? Because you see how passionate I am about things like this beyond just keto and beyond just this Make Positivity Louder message. I just think it's so important and ingrained in me to share some of these experiences that I've had, because I think it can really, truly resonate with someone and help change their life. So with that being said, guys, let me know what you want to hear about. Make sure you go check this out on iTunes. Leave a review. Subscribe if you haven't already to What the Fat Podcast. I appreciate your guys' love and support. As always, make positivity louder, and I'll talk to you next week.